Previously on DnD Build, we built Goku, we built Broly, and now it's time to build the Prince of all Saiyans, Vegeta. And there's absolutely no way I could do that voice for the entire video. But that's right, we're building Vegeta because this is DnD Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons and Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. I had a vote over on Patreon to see which anime my patrons wanted me to pull a character from, and Dragon Ball wound up winning. So let's build that Prince of all Saiyans, starting with the race. I've built a couple Saiyans in the past, so we're going to follow the same idea and go with an Aasimar, because they're much more otherworldly type of creatures, as Saiyans would be, having more of a celestial lineage. When you choose an Aasimar, you can have a sub-race, so we're going to go with a Protector Aasimar. Becoming an Aasimar gives us celestial resistance, so you have resistance to necrotic and radiant damage, and you get the feature Radiant Soul. So you can use your action to unleash divine energy within yourself, causing you to just generally glow. But this transformation lasts for 1 minute. It grants you a flying speed of 30 feet, which we were going to have to sort out either way. And once on each of your turns, you can deal extra radiant damage to one target you already dealt damage to. That radiant damage equals your level, which is a pretty big boost when it comes to D&D numbers. Then when it comes to a background, Vegeta is the Prince of all Saiyans. So we're going to choose the background, Noble. This gives us a skill proficiency in history, but we also get to choose one more non-physical skill of our choice. So we're going to go with Perception. Then when it comes to some stats, we're going to be focusing a little more on strength. So we're going to put 15 points into strength right from the start. Then we have 1 point that would usually go into wisdom, being a Protector Aasimar, but we can customize our origin thanks to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So we're going to put 1 more point into strength thanks to our racial bonus, bringing it to 16. Then we're going to take our dexterity, bring it up to a respectable 12 because you are pretty quick, and we're going to take our constitution and bring it up to 14 so you have a decent amount of hit points. Then we have a fair amount of points left over, but you are the Prince of all Saiyans. You are one of the favorite characters of a lot of Dragon Ball fans, so we're going to take every point we have left over and pump up our charisma. That dumps our intelligence and wisdom down to 8 and brings our charisma up to 14. Then we have 2 more points thanks to our racial bonus, bringing our charisma up to 16. Then when it comes to a starting class, I was really tempted to go with Barbarian. Vegeta has plenty of rage to go around, but if you go Barbarian and you use rage, you can't cast any spells, and that's really limiting. So instead, I like the idea that Saiyans were essentially the Spartans of the universe. They lived for battle and fighting, so we're going to choose the class Fighter. This gives us access to all armor and shields, which is going to be helpful because Vegeta is usually wearing that Saiyan armor, which I would think of as usually medium armor, but if you want to boost to your armor class, I would just put on some heavy armor because you don't have as much dexterity to get that extra +2 you would get from most medium armor. You also get proficiency in all weapons, but we're not going to worry about that too much, and you get saving throws in strength and constitution. Then you get to choose 2 skills. So we're going to choose Athletics and Intimidation. Then at first level of Fighter, you get to choose a fighting style right away. And you do a lot of punching, so we're going to choose the fighting style Unarmed Fighting. This makes it so if you're not wielding anything in your hands, which we usually won't be, your unarmed strikes are a 1d8 plus your strength modifier. And you can deal some extra damage to anybody you happen to be grappling at the start of each of your turns. Additionally, at first level of Fighter, you get Second Wind. So as a bonus action, you can regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. And this is actually pretty helpful and pretty spot on for Vegeta, because there's plenty of times where he's pretty beat down but still manages to get back up and try and keep fighting. Then at second level of Fighter, you get Action Surge. So on your turn, you can take 1 additional action once per short or long rest, which is a pretty powerful ability. Then at third level of Fighter, you get a Martial Archetype, otherwise known as a subclass. And there was a fair amount of choices, but I'm actually going to go with a Samurai. And not because I think Vegeta is particularly samurai-like, but rather the feature that you get because you choose Samurai is pretty spot on for Vegeta. It's called Fighting Spirit, and I think out of any character, Vegeta exemplifies the fighting spirit more than most. So as a bonus action on your turn, you can give yourself advantage on all physical attacks until the end of your current turn. When you do that, you gain 5 temporary hit points, and the number of hit points increases if you get enough levels in this subclass. But spoiler alert, we're going to be doing some multiclassing, so you won't get those anyways. You can use this feature 3 times and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. The other thing you get from choosing Samurai is a bonus skill proficiency, so we're going to grab Persuasion, just to capitalize on our charisma a little bit. Then at 4th level of fighter, you get an ability score improvement, so to boost up our punches a bit, we're going to boost up our strength by 2 points. Then at 5th level of fighter, you get extra attack, which is very important for anybody that does more physical attacking. Then at 6th level of fighter, you get another ability score improvement, because fighters get the most ability score improvement out of any class in D&D. So we're going to boost up our strength one more time, maxing it out. And then instead of going any further in fighter, we're going to do a multi-class. Vegeta is pretty well known for his never-ending search for becoming stronger and more powerful, even making deals with less than savory types to do so. Whether it's dealing with Frieza, or when he became Majin Vegeta, or anything beyond. So because of the unsavory nature of some of these deals, we're going to multi-class into Warlock. When you get your first level of Warlock, you get some Pact Magic, which is just a special kind of spellcasting that recharges on a short rest, but we're going to save all the spellcasting for the end of this build. Also at first level of Warlock, you get to choose an Otherworldly Patron, otherwise known as a subclass. And a few things might fit as far as style, but Vegeta's going to go with whatever gives him the most power, so we're going to go with a Hexblade. Because when you choose to become a Hexblade, you get the feature Hexblade's Curse. So you can curse a target within 30 feet of you, and you gain bonus damage to any rolls against that target. The bonus damage is going to equal your proficiency bonus, which is going to go up as your overall character level goes up. Additionally, any attack roll you make against a cursed target scores a critical hit on a 19 or a 20 instead of just rolling a 20. And finally, if the cursed target dies, you regain hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. The other feature you get from becoming a Hexblade is Hex Warrior, giving you proficiency with medium armor and shields, which you already had, as well as martial weapons, which you already had, and allowing you to choose an actual physical weapon that you can make weapon attacks with, and allowing you to use your Charisma modifier for the attacks and damage rolls, but we're going to be doing more punching than anything anyways, so this whole feature doesn't really matter. Then at 2nd level of Warlock, you get some Eldritch Invocations. And this is just a way to boost up your overall warlockiness with some particular specializations, but we'll save that for a little later in this video as well. Now if you've seen most of Dragon Ball Z or Super, you know that Vegeta kind of goes back on those deals most of the time. So instead of taking a 3rd level in Warlock, we're going to do another multi-class and dive into Sorcerer. And at your 1st level of Sorcerer, you get to choose another subclass, otherwise known as a Sorceress Origin. And because you've regularly dealt with gods and you have the ability to turn into a Super Saiyan god, we're going to choose the Sorceress Origin, Divine Soul. When you choose Divine Soul, you get Divine Magic, because you're going to have plenty of spellcasting as you level up in Sorcerer, but Divine Soul makes it so you have access to Cleric spells as well as Sorcerer spells, and you get one additional spell for free that doesn't count against the number of spells that you know. It depends on what your affinity is, and this is where it gets a little complicated. Depending on where you are in the Dragon Ball series, Vegeta can be evil or good or chaotic or neutral or whatever. So I'm going to keep it in the middle of the road and say that for the purposes of this build, Vegeta is neutral, which gives us the spell Protection from Evil and Good. Additionally, being a Divine Soul grants you the feature Favored by the Gods. So if you fail a saving throw or miss with an attack roll, you can roll 2d4 and add it to the total, possibly changing the outcome. But you can only use this feature once per short or long rest. Then at 2nd level of Sorcerer, you get Font of Magic, giving you some sorcery points equal to your Sorcerer level. You can trade sorcery points for spell slots to get some more spellcasting in the day, or you can use it for what you get at 3rd level of Sorcerer, Meta Magic. Meta Magic allows you to alter your spells in various ways. You get to choose a couple Meta Magic options this level, and you get to choose more as you level up in Sorcerer. Then as you level up in Sorcerer, it's somewhat straightforward. You get stronger and stronger spellcasting, you get a few ability score improvements, one more Meta Magic option at level 10, and you get plenty of Divine Soul stuff as you level up overall. So let's go ahead and take Sorcerer all the way to level 12, which will max out our character. And the only other feature you get from being a Divine Soul is Empowered Healing. So whenever you or an ally within 5 feet of you rolls dice to determine some health that a spell would be restoring, you can spend 1 sorcery point to re-roll any number of those dice. But your Vegeta, I don't see you doing tons of healing unless it's for yourself. So let's just focus on those ability score improvements, and we have 3 of them. So we're going to put 2 of those ability score improvements into Charisma, bringing it to 20 and maxing it out. Then we have 1 more ability score left over, so we're going to take a feat. And Vegeta is one tough son of a gun. So we're going to take the feat tough. This gives us an extra 2 points of health per level of our overall build. So now with all of the basic levels out of the way, let's cover the meta magic options that you would have gotten from Sorcerer. You get 3 meta magic options with your 12 levels of Sorcerer. So I would take Twinned Spell in order to double the amount of targets you can hit with a single target spell, as well as Quickened Spell. So you can take a spell that would take an action and cast it as a bonus action. Then as far as the third meta magic option that you would get at level 10 of Sorcerer, I would just grab Heightened Spell, forcing an enemy to have disadvantage on a saving throw against one of your spells. And with the meta magic taken care of, let's talk about the Eldritch Invocations. With only 2 levels of Warlock, you only have 2 Eldritch Invocations to choose. So I would grab Eldritch Mind, giving you advantage on your concentration checks to concentrate on spells, and Agonizing Blast, because we needed plenty of blasting. We're a Dragon Ball character, so we're definitely going to be taking the cantrip Eldritch Blast. And because of this invocation, we can add our Charisma modifier to each beam that comes out of Eldritch Blast. By the time you hit 17th level overall, Eldritch Blast has 4 beams that can shoot out of it. So you're going to be pretty darn blasty, because each blast can deal 1d10 as just basic force damage. You get to add your Charisma modifier of +5 to each one of those blasts, and if you have your Hexblade's Curse active, you're dealing an additional +6 with your proficiency bonus, meaning that each beam can deal up to 21 damage. And you've got 4 beams from a single cantrip, dealing up to 84 damage from that one casting. But you don't have to stick with just one casting, because you have Quickened Spell, so you can cast Eldritch Blast as both your action and your bonus action, bringing the overall damage output up to a possible 168. But it doesn't have to stop there, because you still have an action surge thanks to your levels in Fighter, meaning you can deal up to 258 damage, hitting somebody with 12 beams from all of the Eldritch Blasting that you're doing. And on top of that 252 damage possible, if you have your Radiant Soul active, which is basically like you turning into a Super Saiyan in the first place, you can deal an extra 20 damage on that turn, bringing your total for the turn up to 272 damage. And while you get plenty of other cantrips, Eldritch Blast is going to be one of the most important ones to worry about, because that feels a little more just straight up key blasts from Dragon Ball. But it doesn't have to stop there, because you do have 3 spells you can choose thanks to your 2 levels of Warlock. So you're going to want to grab Shield just for a bit more defensive ability. You can have Wrathful Smite to help boost up your punch damage, although there is a bit of controversy as to whether or not you can smite with a punch using Wrathful Smite, but most people think it's mostly okay. However, another way we get to boost up our overall damage from the hardcore blastiness that we have available is with the Warlock spell, Hex. This makes it so every time you deal damage to an enemy, you can deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage. And considering that Eldritch Blast combo we set up already, that means you can deal this 12 times, dealing up to an extra 72 damage, bringing the grand total up to a possible 344 damage in a single turn, which is a little nuts, but we're gonna boost it up a little later in a second anyways, because you also get plenty of sorcerer spells, and we're not gonna worry about some of them because I just want to focus on the important ones. But if you want the full spell list, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, where I have the character sheets for all of my builds, including all of the spells available to each character. You're going to want to get some quick blasts out with the first level spell, Magic Missile. You want to be able to zip around the battlefield like they always do in Dragon Ball, so grab the second level spell, Misty Step, and you don't want to get hit quite as often, so grab the second level spell, Blur, forcing your enemies to have disadvantage when attacking you. And just in case you weren't darting around the battlefield enough, grab the third level spell, Blink, because it basically makes it so you just disappear from existence and then reappear a moment later. This might be closer to the instant transmission that Goku has, but it still works just fine. Then we want to make sure we can fly without having our Radiant Soul active, so we're going to grab the spell Fly. We want to be able to do some more blasting, so we're going to grab Fireball, and we want to be able to pull off the abilities Gallic Gun or Final Flash. And I think the closest way we can pull this off was with the spell Lightning Bolt. It's just one big blast that comes straight out of you, and I think it works pretty well. But remember how I said that you can boost up that massive damage from your Eldritch Blast combo? Well, there's also a spell at 3rd level called Spirit Shroud. We have access to it thanks to our Divine Soul Sorcerer, because usually it's more of a cleric spell, but this makes it so if you're dealing damage to anyone within 10 feet of you, their speed is reduced by 10 feet, and any attack you make deals an extra 1d8. Which is a little better than that 1d6 you get from Hex. So with 2 points of extra damage on 12 attacks, that means you can deal an extra 24 damage, bringing the total for the Eldritch Blast combo up to 368 damage in a single turn. Granted, this does have the caveat that you're attacking somebody within 10 feet of you, but it's still pretty darn powerful, so I had to mention it. Then there's one spell that I really just have to throw in, and it's the 4th level spell, Polymorph. Vegeta is a Saiyan, and when Saiyans see a full moon, they turn into a great ape. So if you want to play up that whole idea, you can cast Polymorph on yourself, turning into a giant ape, which is a huge beast in D&D. It's not going to be nearly as powerful as most of the stuff that you can do without turning into a giant ape, but it's fun to play around with. And if you need the extra 157 hit points that a giant ape has, it's nice to have that in your back pocket. Then I'm going to skip over the 5th level spells and just talk about 6th level, because there's 2 spells I think would really work for Vegeta. If you want to play up the Gallic Gun or Final Flash, you can grab the spell Sunbeam. It's more of a continuous blast, so you can keep using it, but still pretty awesome. And if you want to boost up the transformation into a Super Saiyan God, or the newest Vegeta Ultra Ego, or whatever it is, you can grab the 6th level spell, Tasha's Otherworldly Guise. This makes it so all of your attacks are done with Charisma, but it doesn't matter too much because your strength is already maxed out, but it gives you a +2 bonus to your armor class, so you're pretty hard to hit. You gain a flying speed of 40 feet, and you become immune to the poison condition or the charmed condition, as well as granting you immunity to either fire and poison or radiant and necrotic damage. It's not a massive boost for you, but it still feels like some sort of transformation to be able to pull off all the million transformations that are in Dragon Ball. But frankly, the lower level spell Haste would probably do better, giving you 1 more attack to use, boosting up your speed even more, and improving your armor class at the same time, and giving you advantage on dexterity saving throws, but it just happens to feel like less of a transformation, so it's all about what vibe you want to pull off. Let me know what you think about this build in the comments down below, especially if there's anything you do differently, or if you think this build sucks or it's awesome or whatever. I'd love to hear from you. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below. Just like all of these incredible people and the especially incredible player character patrons, Ted Z, Digimit, Dana Albader, Massey Sala, Andrew Nobles, Alex, Melendez Robinson, Carcat Kitsune, Z13, Yaksha Senpai, the Dino 21, and Benjamin. Then going above and beyond that is my Dungeon Master level patrons that I host D&D sessions for, which I stream over on Twitch and then post the VODs here on YouTube. Daniel Sweeten, Conman ZX, Nathaniel Sims, Cyberciety, Firebeam, Talon Starkey, Demiurge, Daniel Galvin, Michael, Eric Wade, Salvador, Kilo, and Heyo. Then going above anything I could possibly imagine is my God tier level patron. He helps me more than I ever expected, and that's Game Steak. So a very special thank you to him. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, feel free to hit that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, which I do have merch to say this is how I roll, showing off those 3 nat 20s, especially if you're gonna play as Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans, and just beat the crap out of Kakarot in Dungeons and Dragons.